Order in court, all right.
Y'all please be seated. Thank you very much.
I am ready.
This is your motion, Mr. Vaughn?
That's right, Your Honor.
Okay, all right.
We need a motion for a Duncan hearing. In this case, we believe that the defendant, Mr. Benny Cumbie, has put forth a defense of self-defense. We believe that on the night in question that he was acting in self-defense. And so we put forward this motion for a hearing to address that issue.
All right, I'm ready.
We call Mr. Benny Cumbie to the stand, Your Honor.
Okay.
Put your left hand on the Bible, raise your right. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth and help you God?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay, step around to the witness box. Please state your full name for the record.
Benny Earl Cumbie.
You may have a seat.
Earl.
Mr. Park?
Good morning, Benny. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Mr. Barr. How you doing?
Doing well. Benny, where are you from?
I'm from Andrews, South Carolina.
And how long have you lived in Andrews?
Going on 20 years, almost 20 years.
And approximately how old are you right now?
I'm 25 years old.
Do you have any children?
Yes, I have 3 children.
You have 3. What, boy, girl?
I have 1 boy and 2 girls.
And Benny, for the better part of your life, were you employed or where have you worked?
I'm recently just departed from the Army National Guard. My contract ended January 31st. I'm a unionized worker in local 421 on pipe fitter and a welder.
And how long were you in the military?
6 years to be exact.
All right, well, thank you for your service.
Thank you for your support.
Now, Benny, do you know why we're here this morning?
Due to the incident that happened on May 7, 2022.
And in that incident, you and 2 other individuals, looking at Joey Tyree, were involved in a shooting incident, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, on the night, or on the date that this incident happened, did you make a phone call to anyone or to any agency specific?
Made a phone call to the 911 dispatcher, Whisper County.
And when you made this 911 call, did you make it during this incident?
Yes, I did.
And would you recognize your voice if there was a recording made of this call?
Yes, I would.
Your Honor, permission to approach.
Yes,
the
sir.
Witness. Your Honor, take with the mark, his mark is Defense Exhibit 1. Mr. Cumbie, what if I just handed it to you?
911 call by Benny Cumbie.
Now, have you seen that disc before?
Yes, sir.
Has it been changed or altered in any way since the last time you've seen it?
No, sir.
And you did call 911 that night?
Yes, sir, I did.
And it would be your voice on this recording?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'd like to move and publish what's pre-marked as Defense Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Ms. Austin?
No objection, Your
You
Honor.
got it. Thank you, ma'am.
Permission to play.
Yes, sir.
recording.
Hello, 911. Hey, there's a cop following me. There's a cop following me. There's Ford Tucson. I live on 30th Market Highway. Okay, what's going with me? Hey, listen, they're following me. Okay, where are you at? Where are you at on 30th Market Highway? I'm coming up by Eagle Creek. They keep getting in front of me. I'm trying to escape them. You said they doing what now? They following you, but what are you near? I'm trying to escape them. They keep following me. I know. And what road are you on? Hello? Hello? I'm trying to escape them. They keep following me. Okay, I'm I understand that, sir, but you got to tell me where you at.
My address is 892
I don't need your,
Market Highway.
I don't need your address. I need to know where you at.
I'm a quarter mile right down the road from my address.
All right.
Ma'am, listen, I feel threatened. They got guns. They threw stuff in my car. I have my pistol with me, but that's the last.
Okay. What's your name?
Benny Cumbie.
All right. And Billy, why are they calling you?
Because one female's in my car, and I put her out.
Uh-huh.
Then,
Okay.
I'm going now, because I...
Hello? Well, I'm talking to you for hey, all right. Hey, listen to me. Where are you at on 30 Marshall? Well, where are you located on 30 Marshall?
Mr. Cummings, was that you on the 911 tape?
Yes, sir, it was.
And that was what you described the 911 operator was you being followed?
Yes, sir.
Now, what I'd like to do, Benny, is if we can, I want to provide the court with some context. Where were you at earlier in that day?
I was at a party that they had for with the mothers of my child uncle.
You were at a party. Now, were you invited to this party or did you crash?
I was invited to the party.
And who invited you to this party?
Jasmine.
Now, Benny, who is Jasmine?
She's actually the mother of my kids.
And how many children? You said you have 3. How many children you and Jasmine? You have all
2.
3? 2. Okay. Now, this party that you went to, when you arrived, did you see Jasmine?
Yes, I did.
Now, at this time, were you and Jasmine, although you shared children alike, were you and Jasmine in a relationship?
Yes, we was.
So it was common that you would see her at this party?
Yes.
Now, then, once you saw Jasmine at the party, walk us through what happened.
When I got to the party, I saw her. I noticed that she was intoxicated. She was playing with a firearm. And I went to her and I told her to stop.
Now, I want to back up there. Now, it's a party. You said it was a birthday celebration, I believe. You said, how do you know Jasmine was intoxicated?
I seen her drinking a 12-ounce can of Four Loko.
And was that like a beer, wine, cooler?
That's an alcohol beverage, which is highly, I think it's 14% alcohol.
Now, you also said something about she was playing with a gun. What do you mean by playing with the gun?
She was actually like waving in the air, stuff like that in the equipment.
And when you saw her playing with a gun, what did you do?
I went to her and I told her to stop.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I told her to stop because she could hurt herself or someone with the gun.
Now, what happened after you told her to stop?
She actually stopped and she mentioned that she was gonna go down the road to shoot the firearm, and I told her no.
Now, you said down the road. Down the road, is that away from where the party was?
Yes.
So, when she said she was gonna go down the road, what did you do?
When she actually went down the road, I noticed that she went down the road. I went, to find her.
Now, when Jasmine left to go down the road to shoot her gun, was she alone or was she with someone else?
She was actually with Tanasia.
Now, who is Tanasia?
Tanasia is actually Jasmine's first cousin.
Okay, so I assume they're close.
Yes, they are.
Now, you said it was a party. Jasmine's with her cousin, Tanasia, you said they're close. Why were you concerned about them going down the road?
Jasmine's actually the mother of my kids. I actually care about her a lot. And like I said earlier, she could harm herself or someone else with the gun while she was playing with it.
At this point, what did you do?
I went down there, I found Jasmine and Tanasia, and I took the gun from Jasmine and I told them, to get in the vehicle.
Now, did you tell, you went down the road and took the gun from Jasmine. Did you tell both Jasmine and Tanisha to get in the car or just Jasmine?
Both of them.
And when you asked them to get your car, did they both get in your car or truck?
Yes, they did.
Now, Benny, did you force them into the truck?
Not at all.
Did you grab one of them and say, get in here?
No, sir, I didn't.
Did you say, if you don't get here right now, I'm gonna, any threat, of course, to get them into your truck?
No, sir, they made any threats at all.
Now, once everybody's into your car or truck, what kind of car or truck do you have?
I actually have a 2004 Dodge Ram 1500,
Okay, is that a 4-door or 2-door truck?
4-door.
4-door. So if someone's sitting in the back, they don't have to wait for you to put your seat up to get out or have somebody slide over. They can just-
No, not at all.
Okay. Now, as you guys were driving, I guess from the road, where were you headed?
We was actually headed back to the park to drop them off.
Now, while y'all were in the truck, did anything transpire?
I noticed that Jasmine was drinking, her Four Loko while I was driving.
When you noticed that Jasmine was drinking her Four Locos, what did you do?
I took it from her.
Well, then she's in your car, and it's a party, and she's safe. Why would you take her drink from her?
I mean, she's drinking while I'm driving the vehicle. It could affect my driver's license, my career, and also my military career.
What happened after you took her drink from her?
I threw it out the window.
And then what happened after that?
15, 30 seconds later, Tanisha take her drinks and throw it on me.
So let me try to understand. So you, in your car, you took Jasmine's drink from her,
Correct?
and you poured it out.
Yes.
Okay. And then you said next, Tanisha poured her drink on you.
Yes, she did.
I mean, I'm sure that had you pretty upset.
Actually, I wasn't upset. I just thought it would be better, if she got in the vehicle, due to the respect thing, maybe she would cool down.
So Tanisha exited your vehicle after this incident?
Yes, she did.
Now, Vinny, did you leave this girl out in the woods or?
No, actually, she was, probably less than a mile from the house because she originally walked there.
Okay. Now, once she got out of the car, was that the end of it or did something else happen?
Actually, I pulled off. As soon as I pulled off, she opened my door and snatched my portable welder out and started hitting inside my truck.
So you drop her off, or you ask her to leave your vehicle.
Correct?
Then she grabs your welder and hits your vehicle.
Yes.
So what did you do after this?
I actually left her because she was, upset and angry.
Okay. So you left Tanisha right where she was.
Yes.
Okay. She took your welder, you didn't chase after her.
Not at all.
You just said, you know what? Forget it. I'm moving on.
Correct.
What happened after that?
She didn't scream that she was gonna call her brother her boyfriend.
Now, what did you do next? Where did you go?
Went to the party to drop Jasmine off.
So this time, Jasmine, your girlfriend, your child's mother, is still in the car with you.
Yes, she is.
Okay. And you said you drove back to the party.
Yes, I did.
Now, when you drove back to the party, did you do a rolling stop and just throw out the car?
No.
Did you stop your car?
Yes, I did.
Did she exit the car?
Yes, she did.
Now, when she exited the car, what happened at this point?
Well, actually, in my rearview mirror, I noticed that there was a vehicle coming very fast, and it was a cloud of dust that they were going so fast.
Now, were you able to determine who was in this vehicle that was approaching you?
Yes, I was.
And who was in that vehicle? Or who did you believe was in that vehicle?
Tyreek, Joey, and Tanisha.
Now, Tanisha is the young lady that you said poured the drink on and got out your car earlier.
Yes, she is.
Okay. And Tyree is who to you guys? How do you guys know Tyree?
Tyreek is actually Tanisha's brother, and Tyreek is actually Jasmine's first cousin.
Okay, so Tyree, Tanisha, and Jasmine are all kin.
Yes, they
Okay. And who is Joey?
are. Joey is actually Tanisha's boyfriend.
Okay, so Joey is Tanisha's boyfriend, and Tyree was her first cousin.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you said that you saw a cloud of dust coming from behind. At this point, what happened?
They were actually going fast. It looked like they were about to hit me.
And then, did they hit you?
No, they actually came around me.
So what do you mean by they came around you?
They actually pulled up beside me, trying to come around me, and that's when I went around them.
Now, at this point in time, they pulled around you. Was Jasmine in or out of your car?
She was actually out.
Was it clearly visible that she was out of your car?
Yes,
Now, we heard the 911 call. Did you call 911 at that moment?
no, sir.
Okay. What happened after they pulled around or got in front?
I actually went around them.
You went around.
Yes,
Now, once you went around them, is that the time that you called 911?
no, sir.
So what happened after you went around them?
I went around them and I was driving. Then I noticed that they were pointing guns at me and throwing things, at my vehicle.
Now, is that the point in time which you called 911?
Yes, that's when I called 911.
Now, Vinny, on the 911 call, you said that they were following you, and you said you were concerned or some variation of that. You recall that?
Yes,
Now, what I don't understand, which maybe you can help us, Tyree, Joey, Jasmine, Shanasia, you guys all know each other.
yes,
You spent time with them.
yes,
Did you believe that Tyree and Joey were coming after you to bring about some type of harm?
yes, they were.
At the point in time that you made the 911 call, did you believe that one or both of them were armed?
Yes, I do.
Why did you believe one or both of them were armed?
I see earlier, as I mentioned, that they were pointing guns at me and throwing things at me. And I always know that Tyree keep his Service 1911 with him, with a full magazine.
How do you know that Tyree always keeps that gun with him?
I've been there when he purchased the gun, and I always know that he doesn't go anywhere without it.
Now, at this point, you're on the phone with 911.
Yes,
Okay, now you said you drive a Dodge Ram, right?
yes, I do.
Now, is that V6 or V8?
That's a V8.
And they were following you, and then did they manage to get around you?
Yes, they did.
Now, how did they get around you?
I was actually on the phone with 911. I had them on speaker. I was trying to talk to 911 dispatcher and stay on the road at the same time. I was actually nervous.
Did they eventually get around you?
Yes, they sped around me.
Now, Benny, once they sped around you, did one or both of them exit the car?
Yes, both of them did.
And at that point in time, were you still on the phone with 911?
Yes, I was.
Were you still under the belief that one or both of them were armed?
Yes, I was.
Now, Benny, there's a part of this clip that we heard where it appears, well, let me back up. While you were on with 911, I believe you uttered some type of statement of, I have my pistol, but can you
I
help
want
me
that to
understand
be-
what you were trying to say?
I told them that I have my firearm and I want that to be the last resort of resolving the issue.
Okay. Now, once they got out of the car, I believe we heard on the 911 call that you say anything to them.
I told them y'all go on.
Now, once you told them y'all go on, did they leave?
No, they continue to proceed.
Now, you're in your truck.
Yes.
Now, what stretch of road are we on?
I'll be on the right side of the road.
Okay. Now, while you're in your truck, did they try to block you in? Like, how did they get you to stop?
They actually pulled in front of me in the middle of the road.
They pulled in front of you in the middle of the road. Do you remember what kind of car they were?
Ford Escape.
I'm taking what's been pre-marked as defendant exhibit 5 and 7. That person witness, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Then yes, defendant exhibit 5 and defendant exhibit 7. Do you recognize that car?
Yes, I do.
Was that the car that was pursuing you on the night in question?
Yes, it was.
Your Honor, Defense moves to admit defendant exhibits 5 and 7 in evidence.
Ms. Austin?
No objection, Your
With
Honor.
that, thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Now, Benny, you said you testified just a moment ago, they pulled in the middle of the road or in the roadway, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Now, you made one last plea and said y'all go on now.
Yes.
And what happened after that?
They proceed, they came, they tried to put me in the car, and it's their exact words. That was their exact words.
Now, at that point in time, were you still under reasonable belief that these guys were gonna do something to you?
Yes, I was.
Did you believe that they were armed?
Yes.
Did you believe that they just wanted to talk?
No.
Now, are you right-handed or left-handed?
I'm actually right-handed.
So you're in your car, and I'm assuming you're in the driver's seat, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so if you're right-handed, then you use your right hand when you use your pistol, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Now, did you turn and aim and shoot out the window?
I actually turned and I covered myself, to block for them hit me, and I just fired, 2 rounds for them.
Now, after this, you fired the rounds. You didn't stay on the scene. Why didn't you stay on the scene?
Now I want dispatcher directly to go to a safe place.
And what was that safe place?
My safe place is home.
And when you were at home, did law enforcement come to your house that night?
Yes, they did.
And did they detain you?
Yes, they detained me.
Did law enforcement ask you where your pistol was?
Yes, they did.
Did you tell them where your pistol was?
Yes, I told them.
Where was your pistol?
It was in my truck.
And what type of pistol or gun do you have?
I have a Springfield 9mm.
Did you have any other guns in that car?
No, not at all.
Did you have any other weapons on you that night?
No.
Now, did you agree to speak to law enforcement?
Yes, I did.
And when you spoke to law enforcement, did your story or facts differ from what we heard on that 911 call?
No, not at all.
Beg the court to go just for one moment.
Yes, sir.
One or two more questions for you, Benny. Benny, this all happened on the roadway leaving the park.
Correct.
Okay. And so, at the point that these gentlemen were following you, you had left that house.
Yes, I did.
Okay. And was your intention to go back to that house at all that night?
No.
Were you headed home originally, or were you going to go someplace else?
I was headed home.
And no one else was in that truck with you?
No.
All right, Benny, please answer any questions that Solicitor Austin has for you.
All right, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Cumby.
Good morning, how you doing?
Just got a few questions about the night of that party. Who was the party for again?
Chris Sessions,
And who is Chris Sessions?
the uncle of my daughter.
The uncle of your daughter? So is he related to Miss Jasmine Smith?
Yes.
And did the family invite you to the party?
Yes.
Did you arrive at the party the same time as Miss Smith?
No.
Why didn't you two arrive together?
I was somewhere else prior to the party.
Where were you prior to the party?
I was in area called Grand Town.
What were you doing over there?
I was at an event for one of my family members.
Do you remember what time you actually arrived at the party?
I say around for like 8 or 9 or something, maybe.
And when you got there, what was the general vibe of the party going on?
Everyone was drinking, smoking around.
And what was Jasmine doing when you got there?
She was drinking and she was playing by firearm.
And would you say there was a large crowd at the party, a small crowd?
I'll say about a medium crowd.
Did anybody else at the party seem concerned about Jasmine having a firearm, waving it around?
I'm not sure.
Did you see anybody else approach her?
No,
Did you see anybody tell her that she's drinking too much?
no, they're always drinking.
Did anybody seem afraid or threatened with her having a firearm?
I'm not sure.
So would it be safe to assume that nobody felt any immediate danger with her being there with a firearm?
Say again?
So it's safe to assume that nobody felt threatened or in danger with her having a firearm there?
I don't think that's safe to say.
You stated that Ms. Jasmine Smith left from the party, walked down the road, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you said that she went down the road with Ms. Tanasia Tisdale?
Yes, she did.
What's the relationship between Ms. Jasmine Smith and Ms. Tanasia Tisdale?
They're first cousins.
So it's safe to say that they are close with each other, correct?
Yes, they are.
And after they walked down the road, you followed them as well, correct?
Yes.
What was your reasoning for following them down the road?
Stop Jasmine from shooting the firearm.
Why did you want to do that?
She was intoxicated, like I said earlier. She can hurt herself or hurt someone else.
Was there any other individuals located down the road?
No.
And you say the party was between, you got to the party around 8 o'clock, between 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock.
I got there between 8 and 9.
Was it already dark outside?
Yes, it was.
Does Jasmine usually keep a weapon on her for protection?
She just recently bought the firearm, so, no.
Do you know why she bought the firearm?
She always wanted the firearm.
So after you approached Ms. Smith and Ms. Tisdale, what did you do?
I took the firearm from Jasmine.
Where was the firearm located?
It was in her hand, actually.
She didn't have any other items on her?
She had a shoulder bag.
Did you take that from her as well?
Not exactly.
What do you mean by not exactly?
I didn't physically grab the bag.
What happened to the bag?
I'm not sure what happened to it.
So what happened to the gun after you took it from her?
I took it from her and I eventually gave it back to her.
So you gave her back a loaded gun?
No, it was empty gun.
What happened to the bullets inside the gun?
Threw them away.
Why did you do that?
Stop her from shooting it.
Why not just keep the gun away from her?
I'm not sure.
Was there a struggle between you and Ms. Smith between the gun?
No, not at all.
So she freely turned the gun over to you?
Pretty much.
Was she acting aggressive or threatening in any manner?
Not towards me.
Was she acting aggressive towards anyone else?
I'm not sure.
And you said you unloaded Ms. Smith's gun, correct?
Yes, I did.
But you had your service pistol in the truck?
Yes, my pistol was in my vehicle.
What happened after you took the gun from her?
Say again.
What happened after you took the gun from her?
All three of us got in the vehicle.
Did you ask him to get in the vehicle?
Yes, I did.
So you invited him inside your vehicle?
Yes, I did.
And could you elaborate again on the altercation that took place inside the truck?
Well, I took the drink from Jasmine, threw it out the window, and Tanasia took her drink and threw it on me.
Now, if you can remember, was the windows of your truck down or open?
My driver's side window was down.
And that's the window you threw the drink out of?
Yes.
Now, throwing the drink out of the window, did Jasmine get wet?
I got wet, and Jasmine got wet a little bit.
So where was Jasmine seated in the truck?
In the passenger seat, front passenger seat.
So she would be on your right side, correct?
Yes,
And your driver's side window's on your left side, correct?
yes.
So how did Jasmine get wet if you threw the drink out of your left side?
Guess when I grabbed it, something spilled on her.
Was Jasmine's window open?
I know her window wasn't open.
What happened after the drink was thrown out the window?
Sneezy took her drink, threw it on me.
Did you have any immediate reaction to that?
I told her to get on my vehicle.
And where was Tanisha sitting?
In the back seat,
She was sitting behind you or behind Jasmine?
behind Jasmine.
And then she freely exited the vehicle?
Yes, she did.
And what happened after she exited the vehicle?
She came back to my vehicle and opened my door and snatched my welder out.
So you were parked there for about how long?
I wasn't really parked, I was doing the road stop.
And was there any damage to your truck?
Pretty sure there was.
But you haven't had a chance between May 7th and today to see if there was any damage to your truck.
The investigator should have took pictures of the damage.
But you're not sure.
I'm not sure.
So what happened after Miss Tanisha was outside of the truck?
Like I said, she took my welder and started hitting the side of my truck. And as I was leaving, she said I would call my brother, my boyfriend.
Did you see her grab a cell phone, anything?
I didn't see her around anything.
So you're not sure if she really did call her brother and her boyfriend?
She could have possibly called her.
And what was going on inside the truck with you and Miss Smith?
Nothing, I dropped her off.
Where did you drop her off again?
The party.
Now I heard you tell Attorney Barr that the reason for disarming Miss Smith and throwing out her drink was because you were concerned with your career, correct?
Yes,
I would assume that means your military career as well as your welding career.
yes,
Those both are very important to you, correct?
yes.
So when Miss Tisdale took the welder out of your truck, I'm assuming that's the welder you use for work?
I know that's what I use around the house.
But a welder has tools that's pretty much important to him, correct?
Yes.
But you didn't go back to pick up that welder, did you?
No, because I know it's not another one.
Was there any urgency as to why you wanted to flee from the party?
My main goal was to come there, get Keith and Jasmine.
Why did you want Jasmine to leave?
No, I wanted to leave. I didn't want Jasmine to leave.
So why did you want to leave the party?
My main goal was to get Keith and Jasmine to leave
What kind of key were you trying to get from Jasmine?
the house keys.
Were you two residing together at the time?
Not necessarily.
When you say not necessarily, could you elaborate a little bit?
I was spending days there, here and there.
And what was you and Miss Smith's relationship like at that point?
We were actually together.
How would you describe the relationship? Good, bad?
It has its times, with ups and downs. Not every relationship is good.
Were you all on good terms on May 7th?
Yes, we were.
And what's your relationship like with her family?
I take them as young. I wouldn't do anything for them. You know, they ask me to do anything, you know, I do it. And I will take a shot on my back and give it to them.
So the court forwarded your 911 call, and you stated that you were afraid, correct?
Yes, I was.
Why were you so afraid of family members that you took as your own?
Like I said earlier, they had firearms and was throwing things at me.
Did they display those firearms?
Yes, I saw them.
Who was actually displaying the firearms?
The person that was in the passenger seat.
Do you remember who was in the passenger seat?
I thought I saw Joey in the passenger seat.
So, from the time that you see the cloud of smoke coming behind you to when they actually turned around to chase you, about how long did that chase last?
Anywhere from 3 minutes.
So it's safe to say not very long, correct?
Not very long.
And you only noticed Tyreek Rutledge, Joey Jackson, and Tanisha Tisdale in the car, correct?
Yes.
Who all actually exited the vehicle once they cut you off?
Joey and Tyreek.
About how far in front of your truck were the vehicle stopped?
I'm not sure.
When Joey and Tyreek exited the car, did he have any weapons on them?
I'm not sure. They could possibly have weapons.
But you don't remember seeing anything on them?
No.
And how close were they to your truck when they approached?
They were very close. You can actually go to look at it. You can actually pick the voices up on the call.
But it's safe to assume some people have louder voices than others, correct?
Yes.
Would you describe the man arms length away, a couple feet away?
Actually, armed with
At any time did Joey and Tyreek actually try to enter your vehicle?
yes, they did.
How did they try to enter your vehicle?
Pull on the handle, try to take me out. You can actually hear it in our car.
Ms. Cummings, do you remember doing an interview with law enforcement?
Yes, I did.
And do you believe your testimony so far is consistent with what you said to law enforcement that night?
Yes.
And I believe you told Attorney Barr that you had a Dodge Ram truck,
Yes, I did.
a V8.
Yes.
Was there any malfunctions going on with your truck?
I'm not sure.
Nothing wrong with the brakes?
No.
Nothing wrong with the gear shift?
No.
Nothing wrong with the steering wheel?
No.
So it's safe to assume you could have easily backed up away from the danger.
No, that's not safe to say.
Why would you say that?
They were blocking me in the road.
How many cars were blocking you in?
Just one
And where is that car located?
in the middle of the road.
So it's not safe to say you couldn't back up if the car was in front of you?
No, it's not safe to say that.
And how would you describe that road leaving from the park? Is it a two-way lane, a four-way lane?
It's a 2-lane.
Were any other cars on the road that night?
I don't think so. Well, I'm not sure.
The traffic was pretty clear that night? It was just y'all two cars on the roadway?
Yes, from my side.
So you had the opportunity to kind of swerve around if you could?
Not necessarily.
Why would you say that?
They were in the middle of the road.
It was a two-lane highway, correct?
Yes.
No traffic on the road, correct?
Yes.
Nothing else obstructing traffic?
No. Other than they was in the middle of the road.
And what kind of car were you driving again?
They were driving Ford Escape.
And how was the car positioned in front of you?
Like that right there in the middle of the road. Like diagonal.
So diagonal in front of your truck?
Yes.
So there was no space anywhere for you to go around?
Not at all.
You stated to Attorney Barr that in 911 call, you stated that you had a service pistol, correct?
Yes,
And that you only want to use it as a last resort.
yes, correct.
What other measures did you take before shooting?
Try to get away from them.
You didn't try talking to them?
Yes, you can hear me say, y'all please go on now.
But you didn't want to ask them what was going on, what was the problem?
Like I said earlier, I just stated, y'all please go on now. I'm trying to get to safety.
But you didn't feel like having a conversation with them?
If they wanted to have a conversation with me, they could actually call me. They actually have my number.
But they were right there with you at the party in person, correct?
Yes, it was.
And you were fleeing from the scene, correct?
Say again.
You were fleeing from the scene, correct?
State, can you further explain that? Can you please understand?
You were leaving from the scene, correct?
Yes.
If they would have called, would you have answered?
Oh, yes, I would definitely answer.
But you stayed there like family, correct?
Yes, I look at them like family.
Did they consider you family?
Yes.
So why would they want to hurt their family?
I'm not sure.
So what gave you the indication that night that they wanted to hurt you?
Spraying firearms, trying to block me. They're trying to pull me out the vehicle.
But you just stated that they didn't have any weapons on them.
I'm not sure if they did or not, but I seen them displaying the firearms while they were chasing me.
But when they got in the car to approach you, they didn't have any weapons on them.
I'm not sure if they did or not.
I beg the question, Lord, Your Honor. Mr. Cummings, what kind of gun did Miss Jasmine Smith have?
All I know is a blue and gray. So I think it's I'm not sure. I think it's a Taurus maybe.
A blue and gray Taurus?
Yes.
And how exactly was she playing with it at the party?
She was actually waving it around.
And you agree that was an important detail to give law enforcement that she was playing with a gun at a party?
Yes.
And did you tell the investigator that during your interview?
Yes, I did.
And do you mind showing the court exactly how you got the gun away from Ms. Smith?
Grabbed it and took it from her.
And the gun was on her person?
It was in her hand.
And it's safe to assume that you're stronger than Ms. Smith?
I'm not sure. Did you say that?
But you had military training, correct?
Yes, I do.
Had to go through basic training and everything?
Yes, I did.
Does Ms. Smith have any military training?
No, she doesn't.
So did you have to exert any force to get the gun away from her?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Barr?
Yes, Your Honor, just briefly. Maybe I just want to touch on a couple of things that you testified to during the examination with Solicitor Austin. Now, talk about this party. You said there were people that were, when you arrived, people were intoxicated.
Yes, they were.
Now, Benny, that night, did you have anything to drink?
No, not at all.
You said people were smoking marijuana. Did you ingest any marijuana or any drug substances?
No, sir.
So, as far as it goes that night, you were sober as a preacher, would they say?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, Ms. Austin asked you about your military record or your military training.
Yes.
You've been trained, correct?
Yes, I was.
Now, I'm assuming you can identify or you've heard gunfire
Yes.
based on your military training. Would I be correct to assume that? You know the difference between gunfire and firecrackers.
Yes.
You know the difference between gunfire and rocks or pebbles.
Actually, gunfire passes when we throwing rocks. Instrumental actually sounds the same.
Now, that night, that when you made the call for 911, you said they were throwing things, they were chasing you. Did you believe at all that they were shooting at you?
Yes, I believe they could possibly shoot at me.
Why did you believe that?
Because like I go to my military training, throwing things and gunfire passes somebody actually sound the same.
And again, for the record, your firearm is what type, make and model?
Us is Springfield XD 9mm.
Okay, thank you. Benny. No further questions.
Can you recross, Ms. Austin?
Mr. Cumby, when Mr. Rutledge and Mr. Jackson approached your vehicle, how many shots did you fire?
Only fired 2.
And did you fire in the direction of these two individuals?
I just, like I said earlier, covered myself with fired 2 shots. I'm not sure if it was in any direction or what.
But they approached you on your driver's side vehicle, correct?
Yes, it did.
And that's the window that you shot out?
Yes.
You see, you have about 6 years of military training, correct?
Yes, I did.
And I believe you all are taught how to use firearms, correct?
Correct.
And what's the usual standard for a shot in military? Is it 1 shot, 1 kill?
No. It's actually center mass, 2 shots center mass.
But you had extensive training with firearms, correct?
Yes, I did.
Would you consider yourself like a skills marksman?
No, not at all.
What level do you think you at?
I'm barely qualified.
But you had more training than the regular civilian, correct?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Barr?
No further questions from Mrs. Cummings.
You may step down, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I recall investigator Archie Kennedy.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Second round. Please state your full name for the record.
Investigator Archie Kennedy.
Thank you.
Good morning, Investigator Kennedy. How you doing? Good morning, Mr. Barr. Investigator Kennedy, how long have you been with well, let me start here. What organization or agency do you work for?
Winslow County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you worked for the Williamsburg County Sheriff's Office?
Since January of 2011.
So that's roughly about,
12
years. 12 years. And as an investigator, have you worked homicides and self-defense and, I guess, assault and battery, high aggravated? Have you had experience with all those types of cases?
Yes, sir.
You probably can't recall, but do you know approximately how many times you've been a lead investigator on one of those cases?
A lot.
More than 20?
Probably.
More than
yes.
50?
Probably not 50, but definitely probably more than 20.
So-
In homicide cases.
No.
Yes.
Now, in these cases, I'm assuming that with your 12, 13 years of experience, Your experience as a lead investigator, I would say you probably haven't seen it all, but you probably have seen it all. Would that be fair to say?
No, sir, actually, you learn something on every case, no matter how big, how small.
Okay. Now, in this case, you were the lead investigator, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What is an investigator, I guess, and what is a lead investigator? If you can just educate me on that.
As short as I can make it, search of the facts.
Okay.
Trying to find out what happened and why.
Okay. So, in this role, and I like the way you put that, search for the facts.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll start with fact number one. Did you recover a firearm from Mr. Benny Cummings?
Yes, sir. One of our patrol deputies did recover a 9mm Springfield from Mr. Cummings' truck.
Did they have to search for that firearm, or were they told directly where it was by Mr. Cummings?
When that deputy responded back to me on that, he had asked for consent to go into the truck. He had asked Mr. Cummings where the weapon was. He told him it was in the Dodge, and then consented for him going in and getting it.
Okay. I guess fact number two, were there any other firearms that were either discovered in Mr. Cummings' truck or at the scene?
Yes, sir.
At the scene, we'll start there. Did law enforcement recover any other firearms?
Yes, sir. There was one that was in plain view that one of our other investigators saw and secured it that evening. Search warrant was obtained, I think the following day. I'd have to look at the date, or possibly 2 days later, on the victim's vehicle, the Ford Escape, and a second weapon was found in it.
Okay. So I want to make sure I understand this. I want to make sure the court understands. So at that night at the scene, there's only one vehicle left. Is that correct? Or was that
The Ford Escape, the victim's vehicle was at the scene where the two victims were located.
Now, Mr. Cummings said that that vehicle was in the middle of the road. Is that true or false?
It was mostly in the right lane. I think I would have to probably look at a picture to give you the percentage, but a portion of it was right at the center, the yellow line.
Now, Approach Your Honor, see Fitz Exhibits 5 and 7. Questions on that?
Yes, that's an accurate portrayal.
Okay, so that car was not moved at all?
Not to our knowledge, that was the way law enforcement found it, the way it's photographed.
Okay, now, we don't have a picture of it, but the deceased, their bodies were in front of the car or behind the car?
They were in the way that the vehicle's facing, which is east. They are basically just west of the vehicle, behind the vehicle.
Okay. Now, I want to follow up on what we discussed about the gun in plain view.
Yes, sir.
Now, probably should have paid better attention when I was in my criminal procedure class. What does plain view mean?
By what the investigator described to me, is it was sitting in basically at the edge of the seat by the console.
So it was, if I use the word accessible, would it mean that that gun was accessible?
Yes, sir.
And it was by the center console, you mean the middle area of the car?
That's correct, yes, sir.
I'm taking what's been pre-marked as Defense Exhibit 6. Investigator Kennedy, we do not have the most top flight printers. Is that an accurate depiction of the center console area?
Yes, sir.
Do you see a firearm in that picture?
Barely, but I have seen this photograph on the computer before, and there is a firearm there.
Has it been changed or altered in any way?
Not from what the investigator provided me, no, sir.
Your Honor, the move was in pre-marked Defendant's Exhibit 6.
Ms. Austin?
No objections, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am, for that.
Okay. Now, Investigator Kennedy, Mr. Cummey testified that while he was being followed, he saw someone brandishing a gun. Could it be possible that they were brandishing that gun?
I wouldn't know, possibly, yes.
Okay. And was there only Mr. Tyree and Joey and Tanaja in the car, or was there someone else in the car?
No, sir. My statements that I received the night of the incident, there were 5 individuals in the car.
Okay. And did one of you, did you speak and interview all 5?
I did, yes, sir.
Okay. Now I want to go back to what you said, and I apologize.
Excuse me, no, sir. I interviewed the 3 and then the 2 victims, of course.
Okay.
The other 2.
You said there was that gun that we just identified.
That's
But
correct.
you also said that there was another gun recovered.
That's correct.
What type of gun was that?
May I look at my notes?
Absolutely.
I think it was a .22 rifle, but I don't want to tell you incorrectly. Savage rifle, model 64.
Now, a Savage rifle, model 64, I'm assuming you have experience with firearms.
Some, yes, sir.
Okay, what type of weapon is that?
I have something incredibly similar to it, and I use it to shoot squirrels.
Okay. Can you shoot a person with it?
You certainly could, yes,
If
sir.
you shot a person, could you kill them with it?
Absolutely.
And that gun was in the Ford Escape.
It was in the Ford Escape in what I would refer to as the trunk compartment of a small SUV, the back compartment.
Okay. So I believe we've established, I think by count, 5 facts. You said you're a search for the facts. So fact number 1, we did the gun Mr. Cumbie used. Law enforcement found that by direction of Mr. Cumbie in his truck.
That's correct.
Fact number 2, there were other firearms recovered that night.
Well,
one that
one-
night, one later in the search.
In the search warrant, correct.
Okay. Now, Investigator Kennedy, in the search for facts, did you listen to the 911 call prior to today?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Did you make any determinations after listening to that call as a skilled law enforcement officer?
I did.
And what were those conclusions or assessments that you came up with?
There were several things that when I listened to it, that I realized, okay, we've got to try and corroborate. This can be a lengthy answer. When I first listened to the 911 tape was the night of the incident. I had already interviewed Mr. Cumbie. Mr. Cumbie had told me he was on the phone with the dispatcher from the moment that I think the way he put it is when he turned on to Thurgood Marshall off of Pepper Hill Road. And that he was on the phone with him during the shooting all the way up until the time that law enforcement made contact with him at his home. So I went to dispatch, which is unusual at that close to an incident, but I took time to go ahead and listen to the portion of when he initially called through the time that he said that he had shot one. He had shot one person. And it was obvious to me that he was scared. It was, he was questioned by the dispatcher on why they were chasing him, for which he, if I recall correctly, he never really answers. He just said, there was people chasing him. And when I interviewed him in reference to that after listening to the 911 tape, he breaks it down that he was down the road, as he has already testified here today, and that he never really did answer me to tell me why he disarmed and took the ammo away from Miss Jasmine. However, when I spoke to Miss Jasmine describes that her pistol was not in her hand, that her pistol was in her neck pouch. And that when he actually come down the road, he immediately goes and he starts pulling on this, trying to get the firearm to the point that it even breaks her necklace. And as soon as he got her gun, without provocation, immediately he begins to unload that. And coupling that, the 911 tape then makes more sense to me. An incident had taken place down the road. It now has led into the event of individuals chasing, even though I didn't have all the details how and why at the time. The 911 tape did make more sense to me. He realized there had been an incident just literally moments before. They're chasing him now because of that incident, and I had to dig in further to make the determination of what the facts were or what led into that 911 call.
Now, you used the words, he unloaded the gun, does that mean he shot the gun, or does that mean he unloaded?
His description and Ms. Jasmine is that he actually took, once he actually got possession of the firearm, he takes and takes the magazine out, takes the bullets out of the gun and throws the bullets in the woods. Both of them confirmed that.
Okay. Is that a punishable offense to unload a loaded weapon?
No, sir, I didn't charge him for that. In the domestic violence portion, the reason I charged him for it is because he's jerking on her, and partly jerking on her by the way she described it to me, and going after that pouch, and then also pouring the drink on her.
Okay. Now, the pouring of the drink, that was, Mr. Cumbie's version of the story differs from...
Yes, it
the other
does.
two. Okay.
Two completely different versions.
Now, did your investigation determine that Mr. Cumbie had dropped Jasmine off or she exited the vehicle prior to him being followed?
He confirms to me that in the interview that he drops her off back at the party, and then he leaves, and then when he got to the stop sign, which is about 1.5 to 2/10 of a mile from where the party was at, that's when he realized that there was a car coming up fast behind him.
Okay. Now, did you, as part of your investigation, did you run a check on Mr. Cumbie's firearm?
We did. It had no record found. It was clear.
Oh, so it was lawfully in his
lawful.
possession?
Found nothing on it.
Did you run a check on his Dodge Ram license plate?
We did.
Was that his car, or was it stolen?
Found nothing unusual.
Oh, so, I don't want to assume anything, but based on, if we remove the two deceased and the shooting of the two deceased, at that moment in time, Mr. Cumbie, if he was charged with anything, potentially may have been, I'm guessing, some type of DV third.
That's what I did charge him with, was DV third, yes, sir.
Okay. And DV third is a misdemeanor, it's a felony,
It's a misdemeanor.
is it a magistrate level charge?
No, sir, I think all of the domestic violence come to general sessions
Okay.
now.
So at that point in time, that was, your investigation established that other than the shooting, that would be the only thing potentially he could be charged with?
Correct.
Okay. Did your investigation, found that, well, let's start here, the car, before it escaped. Do you recall how far that car was from where the party's location was?
From the stop sign at the intersection of Pepper Hill Road and where the crime scene takes place on 3rd and Marshall is 1.2 miles. From the stop sign to where Chris Sessions' birthday party was at is right at like 1.5, 1.5 tenths, not quite 2/10 of a mile.
Okay, so basically 1.5 miles from the residence
Party
to
crime scene.
the crime scene.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that was the distance that Mr. Cumbie had traveled when he left?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And by the way, he had told me, he says, and he was really clear in the interview, I wanted to know when he started that 911 call, where he was at. And he says he was literally pulling from the stop sign on Pepper Hill, pulling out, making the left on 230 Marshalls when he instigated the 911 phone call.
Now, in the search of both vehicles, and we'll start with Mr. Cumbie's truck, per the report, there's a mention of a green leafy substance that was found. Was that found on Mr. Cumbie's truck, or was that found in the other car?
No, so that was found at the crime scene.
That was
not found in a vehicle. I would need to refer back to that investigator's notes to cover. I think it was literally found on the side of the road, not in the roadway, but I would have to refer to his notes to verify.
Now, that is the belief that that substance was drugs?
I believe it to be marijuana. I have no clue who
Okay.
witnessed it.
And Mr. Cumbie testified earlier that they were smoking marijuana, that people at the party were smoking marijuana.
He did,
And that marijuana was found at the scene,
at the crime scene.
at the crime scene. Okay. May the force indulgence for one.
Yes, sir.
Now, Investigator Kennedy, Mr. Cumby or Benny testified about a Four Locos alcoholic beverage drink. Do you recall that?
I do.
Did anyone else that you spoke to or interviewed, did that drink come up at all?
I think, I'm pretty sure that Miss Jasmine Smith and Miss Tanasia Tisdale tells me about the Four Loko and the incident with the Four Locos.
So that would be fact number 7, that that drink was established.
Yes, sir.
So
The only difference I got in my investigation is Mr. Cumby was tossing it, in his opinion, I was just gonna toss it out the window, and then Miss Smith's and Miss Tisdale's, he poured it on.
Okay.
So, that's the really only difference, but the incident of Four Loko and poured on Miss Smith happened, and then the incident of Miss Tisdale pouring the Four Loko on Mr. Cumby happened.
And they each interviewed with law enforcement separately, correct?
You talking about Miss Smith and Miss Tisdale?
And Mr. Cumby?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Cumby, I interviewed at the sheriff's office. Ms. Smith, I interviewed on Pepper Hill Road. And Ms. Tisdale, I caught up with her, but I don't remember the name of the road in the city of Andrews.
Okay.
But that was at least probably 30, 45 minutes after I spoke to Ms. Smith.
All right. I want to ask you this question, Investigator Kennedy, and it might be a little confusing. So, if we remove Mr. Cumby out of this ordeal, and we just focus on the car, the black Ford Escape, and what you found at the scene, would those individuals be charged with anything?
I'm not sure I'm following.
You said in the car, in the black Ford Escape, you found 2 guns, one a shotgun, one a 1911.
If you're making the assumption that no shooting takes place and this is a traffic stop, is that what you're referring to?
That's correct.
Where the handgun was found in the vehicle, if Mr. Rutledge or Mr., I think his name was Shadwan Brown, forgive me one second, who was the other passenger in the front seat. Forgive me. Yes, Mr. Shadwan, if neither one of them would have had a concealed weapons permit, then potentially, yeah, they could have been charged for unlawful carry of a firearm.
Now, in the Ford Escape, did you find any ammunition in that car?
Yeah, refer to the chain of custody. I think there was some 5.56 rounds, but give me one moment. One box of 5.56 ammo.
And with that box of ammunition, which gun would that be for?
That would not have been able to be used in either firearm that's found in the vehicle.
Okay. All right. No further questions. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Investigator Kennedy.
Ms. Austin?
Good morning, Investigator Kennedy. As you stated, you are the lead investigator on this case, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And as a lead investigator, you do corroborate the facts that are given by one side of the party, correct?
I certainly try.
So part of corroborating Mr. Cumby's story was to give and conduct several interviews, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you do that in this matter?
I did.
Who all did you interview?
I spoke to, of course, Mr. Cumby. I spoke to Miss Jasmine Smith. May I refer to my notes so I know who's what?
Yes.
Mr. Ontario Davis, Mr. Shadwan Brown, Miss Tanasia Tisdale. Those were individuals that were a part of the incident.
And as part of the investigation, you look back at all the photos that are taken, you review the chain of custody, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You review everything that's found during the search warrant,
Yes, ma'am.
and if anything would stand out to you, you would try to make sense of it, correct?
I did.
During your interview with Mr. Cumby, Did anything stand out to you what he said?
Several things. I think one of the things that concerned me that particular night, before I even had any of the other facts, is he gives, in his statement, he describes how he's been assaulted. He basically stated that they're both punching him repeatedly and grabbing at the steering wheel. And I mean, he's basically telling me there's a pretty violent event taking place right there. And my experience is there's typically some physical evidence of that type of violent incident. So I began, as I was just sitting there talking to him, I'm looking for any type of visual injuries, torn clothing, anything like that. And he's told me he's wearing the same clothing. He's told me he's been violently assaulted. And I simply can't see anything just sitting there with him. Near the end of the first interview, I actually get a lot closer. I want to make sure that I'm not missing something. I even photograph it. I have another investigator come in and look at it and photograph it. And we can't find any physical evidence to corroborate the story of a physical assault by Mr. Rutledge and Mr. Joey Jackson.
So there were no marks, no bruises on Mr. Cumby?
Couldn't find any, ma'am. Even sent him over to the hospital, just to, he had kind of like, I'm feeling a little lightheaded anyway, type deal. So I actually had one of the patrol officers take him over and see if the doctor could find anything. There was nothing located there as well.
All right, Investigator Kennedy, I'm going to approach you with the pre-marked states exhibit 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Thank you.
Could you tell the court what those pictures are of?
Yes, ma'am. These are pictures of Mr. Cumby. I think this was actually the morning right after the incident. I'm not sure exactly what time, probably around 4 or so.
And in the pictures, there are no marks, no bruises on him.
We couldn't find any injuries, no, ma'am.
And you stated, based on your experience and training in law enforcement, when it has been attacked, there will be some indication of some kind of physical
There
altercation.
typically is, yes, ma'am.
Now, part of your investigation, too, were pictures taken of the scene that night?
Yes, ma'am.
And if anything of importance was at the scene, it would have been photographed, correct?
Yes, ma'am. We have pretty good CSI guys.
And you were in the court previously for Mr. Cumby's testimony, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And he stated he believed that Mr. Joey Jackson and Tyreek Rutledge were shooting at him.
Yes, ma'am. I heard that.
And he stated that shooting occurred on the roadway, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's safe to assume that if the shooting did occur, that there were shots fired at him on the roadway, shell cases would have been found along the roadway?
Yes, ma'am, but also he didn't indicate that to me when he told me. He said that they were throwing things that they had presented. He said he had seen the firearms, they had presented the firearms out the windows, and that they were throwing things at it. He never indicated he thought he was being shot at.
Investigator Kennedy, I'm going to approach you with the pre-marked states exhibit 5. Could you tell the court what that is a picture of?
I'm sorry, I understand your question.
Could you tell the court what that is a picture of?
Yes, ma'am. This is 3rd and Marshall Highway. That's the Ford Escape, and excuse me, that's not. I can't quite tell what vehicle that is. That might be 2 vehicles there, but that's one of the victims in the middle of the road.
And are there any shell cases in that picture?
There is, because I've seen the better photograph on the thing, but I can't see it in this particular image here.
But if there were multiple shell cases in the roadway, it would have been identified and marked?
It would have been located, and there was only 1 shell case found at the crime scene.
Your Honor, at this time, the state will seek to move into evidence states exhibit 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
No objection, Your Honor. Thank you, sir. Without objection.
So, Investigator Kennedy, you stated that you conducted an interview with Mr. Cumby, correct?
I did.
How many interviews did you conduct with him in all?
2.
Do you remember the dates of those interviews?
I think, give me a second, give you a specific. One was in at 11:22 at night on May the 7th, and the second one was the morning of the May the 8th at 3:59 in the morning.
I'm going to approach them with the pre-March statements in the end. Do those appear to be the recordings of the interviews taken by Mr. Cumby?
Yes, ma'am.
Do they appear to be altered or changed in any way, fashion, form?
No, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this time, the state is seeking to move the evidence states exhibit 8 and 9.
Without objection, thank you, sir.
Now, during that interview, did Mr. Cumby mention any altercation with his girlfriend, Ms. Jasmine Smith?
He didn't identify an altercation. He basically said he was at the party and that he noticed she had gotten up and left and had gone down the road. And I think the way he put it to me is he went down the road to see what was wrong. And when he gets down there, even though I kind of questioned a little harder on it to where I had a better understanding, he don't really tell me why, but you know, he basically, I use the word disarm, he takes the gun from her and then takes the bullets out the gun and throws the bullets in the woods.
But he doesn't state that Jasmine was acting erratic.
I don't recall any of that, no ma'am.
So during the investigation and your interviews, it was found that the firearm was actually inside of Ms. Jasmine Smith's bag?
That's what Ms. Jasmine Smith indicated to me. And if I recall correctly, I think Ms. Tanasia Tisdale actually confirmed that.
And in the struggle with Ms. Smith, between Ms. Smith and Mr. Cumby, he actually forced the bag away from her and popped her necklace.
That's correct, yes ma'am. That was her statement.
Is that what constituted the domestic violence?
That along coupled with the pouring of the Four Loko drink on her as well.
So based on your investigation, a freshly committed domestic violence had just happened.
Yes ma'am.
And could you explain to the court the timeline between the domestic violence and the shooting?
Through Mr. Cumby's statement, Ms. Jasmine's statement, and Ms. Tanasia's statement, the incident takes place with he takes possession of the weapon, he takes the ammo out of the weapon, he throws it in the woods. By his description, he asked them to get in the vehicle. By their description, they're told to get in the vehicle. Either way, they get into the vehicle. He notices the Four Loko, he takes the Four Loko, and his version, he's tossing it out the window. They're indicating that he essentially poured drink on her. Ms. Tanasia immediately responds to that what she considered a provocation by throwing drink on him. He immediately responds by stopping the vehicle, tells her to get out of the vehicle. Either as she's getting out of the vehicle or immediately upon getting out of the vehicle, she begins pulling his welder out of the vehicle. And at that point in time, he leaves, gets ready to leave from the spot, which is right down from the party. He actually tells me that Tanasia yells at him as he's pulling off, "I'm going to call my brother," is what he says. From that point, he immediately goes back by what him and Jasmine says. He pulls back up to the party, he drops her off, and he pulls off. From that point, he gets up to the stop sign, and then that's where he notices a car coming up at a high rate of speed toward him, coming all the way up to him. As he's pulling off, he realizes, essentially that he's in danger by what he feels, and he calls 911. And in that entire thing, I've wrote this multiple times, from where the original incident takes place between him and Jasmine and Tanasia, and the stop sign is essentially right at about 0.4 of a mile, and then it's 1.2 miles from the stop sign to where the shooting takes place.
So it's a quick time frame, correct?
I wrote it multiple times, and the best I can give you is about 2.5 minutes from that location to the scene, and that's driving the speed limit. Of course, I can't say exactly what speed limit they were going.
But you would agree that these events happen almost instantaneously?
Yeah, this is a rolling event. It starts and it stops by 2 young men that shot.
Now, Attorney Barr asked you a hypothetical question. If Mr. Cumbie wasn't there, it would have been this traffic stop. But we weren't dealing with a hypothetical situation here. It was a real life situation, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And based on your investigation, the chase wouldn't have occurred at all if the altercation between Ms. Smith and Ms. Tizza didn't occur.
I believe that to be true, and I basically believe that because of something Mr. Cumbie told me, not just what other individuals told me. Mr. Cumbie said when he got to the event, he's dapping them up and having a good time with them, that sort of thing, these same individuals that he's shooting 2 hours later. So, they don't sit there for 5 minutes and then this incident happened with Jasmine. They're there for a couple of hours having a good time together, and then, a couple hours later, the incident, the domestic violence situation takes place, and then immediately after that, this event happens to where the chase happens and then a shooting happens.
And Investigator Kennedy, the decision to bring about charges ultimately rests with law enforcement, correct?
It does, yes, ma'am.
Could you explain to the court why these charges were brought against Mr. Cumbie?
I think I've already explained the domestic violence portion, the elements of the grabbing on her to where it even breaks her chain, taking the firearm that she lawfully possessed, and takes the ammo out, throws it out. They get into the vehicle. The drink ends up on her, different versions of how that happens. I felt that met the elements of domestic violence third, and that was the reason I charged him with domestic violence third. The reason I charged him with manslaughter, in this case, versus murder, is I could not find any specific factor to where he made this plan and then executed this plan. And even though that only has to happen in a second, I think the event, he lost control of the event. He got scared. He should have been able to anticipate you're at your baby mother's family event. If you assault her, they're going to respond, but certainly I don't think he thought they were going to respond by chasing them. But when that chase happened, it did take the murder element out of it, but in the manslaughter element, I feel like it meets the elements because you can't have 10 dominoes lined up and you push over the first domino, which he did with this domestic violence, and then when the 9th domino hits the 10th domino and knocks it down, claim you have no responsibility to it. He brought on the conflict, and I don't think he meant the conflict probably to go that to the level it did. Therefore, I didn't charge him with murder. I charged him with manslaughter.
So based on your training and experience, Mr. Cumbie set off this chain of events that occurred.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am. He brought on the conflict in this.
And as the lead investigator, you are privy to all reports that are made in this case, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So did you have a chance to review the autopsy in this?
I have.
And there were 2 autopsies performed, correct, on Mr. Tyreek Rutledge and Mr. Joey Jackson?
Correct.
Was there anything surprising in the autopsy report that you found?
As the investigator of this case, I was constantly trying to find any way to corroborate anybody's version of events because the real essence of what happened, nobody really questioned. It was the finite details that makes all of the difference in this case. And yes, I did find something that I felt refuted Mr. Cumbie's version of events, but corroborated Ms. Tanasia Tisdale's version of events. When I interviewed Ms. Tanasia, I actually have her, because we're standing outside on this little gravel road in the city of Andrews, I actually have her use my truck as Mr. Benny Cumbie's truck, and to go and stand and show me where Mr. Tyreek Rutledge was standing when he was shot, and where Mr. Joey Jackson was shot, where he was standing when he was shot. She walks over to the driver's side of my truck, and she stops about 3 to 4 feet away from my truck. And then she tells the Andrews police officer who's accompanying me at the time where to stand to represent Mr. Joey Jackson, which was roughly about 10 feet from the the truck. I found it corroborating even that night, exactly where the bodies were lying, where people were saying his truck, talking about Mr. Cumby's, came to a stop. That portion I felt was corroborated, but I felt it was much further corroborated is that there was no stifling and no soot on either one of the victims. And it's my experience working homicides, close quarter shootings, especially as Mr. Cumby described. He describes he's in the truck, and they're reaching in the truck, hitting him, and the gun shoots him. You're talking a very short distance away, and I believe that there would have been soot and stifling, and there was none in this case on either victim.
Any questions, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Investigator Kennedy, what caliber was the shell casing that was at the scene?
Forgive me, one moment. I'm sure it was 9mm, but I'm going to verify. Investigator that processed that scene found one spent Winchester 9mm Luger casing.
And do you know what caliber the guns were found in the vehicle belonging to Mr. Tyreek Rutledge?
Mr. Rutledge had it was later identified to be Mr. Rutledge. The handgun that was in the front seat was a 1911, which is a .45 caliber, and the rifle that was found in the hatch area of the Ford Escape was a .22. The handgun that was found in Mr. Cumby's vehicle was a 9mm.
So the shell casing that was found in the road was consistent with the caliber gun used by Mr. Cumby?
That's correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Vaughn?
Yes, Your Honor. This was brief.
Investigator Kennedy, I want to go back and talk about some of those, what you testified with chain of events and dominoes, as you would say.
Yes, sir.
The first, I guess, domino, would you agree, was Mr. Cumby and Tanasia and Jasmine in the truck together?
No, I would probably make that, in my thinking, is probably domino 2 and domino 3. Domino 1 is him coming down the road and taking the firearm away from Miss Jasmine.
Okay. And then domino 2 would be the truck.
Or 3, maybe 2 being as he's taking the gun away, the domino 2 would be taking the round. It feels like to me he's disarming her for a reason.
Now, you would agree, or let me scratch that. So domino 3.
Okay. I believe it's 4 local.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Cumby drops both Tanasia and Jasmine off that night, correct?
By what he tells me, and Ms. Smith and Ms. Tisdale confirm, is he tells Tanasia to get out of the vehicle when she pours her drink on him.
But, and I guess that the time of the shooting, no one was in Mr. Cumby's car.
No, the only thing I had in contrary to that in any statement I got is Ms. Tanasia Tisdale said she didn't, I think it was, she didn't know if he was beating on Jasmine or not. So I don't know if she meant that she thought she was still in the vehicle then. I really don't know. I never did make that determination.
And that's a good point, and I want to follow up on that. So, exclusively, based on what we've found today, these gentlemen were acting upon what Tanasia told them. Is that
I
correct?
think that's probably fair, yes.
Okay. So then, Investigator Kennedy, if that's the case, how can that be a domino for Mr. Cumby? If, as you testified, she told these two guys what she believed happened, how could he be how could he have gotten that chain started?
I think number one, if he doesn't go down and assault Jasmine Smith, none of this happens. He's having a good time with these same individuals that are now chasing him, he ultimately shoots. That did go into my thought process. He tells me he's having a good time with these people, and that, you know, no domestic violence, no shooting, no chase, no shooting.
Well, let's talk about the domestic violence. You said domestic violence third, right?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other levels of domestic violence?
Zero.
Is there domestic violence second?
There is.
Is second higher than third?
It is.
Is there domestic violence first?
Sir.
Is first higher than second?
Yes, sir.
So you charged him with the lowest domestic violence that you could be charged with under the law?
And I can explain if you'd like.
No, I'm just asking yes or no.
Yes,
He charged with the
I did.
lowest one.
I did, based on the lack of physical evidence of injury to Ms. Smith.
Okay, so lack of physical evidence of injury to Ms. Smith.
Correct.
Okay. So at the moment in time this was playing out, Mr. Tyree, Mr. Joey were acting on what we believe exclusively what Ms. Tanasia said. That
I believe so.
And then based on what you observed when you interviewed Jasmine, you did not see any physical injuries.
I did not.
And then based on what you've also testified to, you charged him with the lowest level of domestic violence.
I did.
Okay. I want to get back to the chain of events. If Mr. Cumbie had a dispute with Ms. Tanasia and Ms. Jasmine, how did he set a domino or a chain of events in place with these two other gentlemen who seemingly have no at all interest in the story until they meet up with Ms. Tanasia?
I'll answer the best I can. Tanasia's impression, present sense impression, was as her first cousin was been assaulted and now has left in a vehicle with the person who she just witnessed assaulting him. She's going to give her present sense impression to those individuals, her brother, her boyfriend. And that present sense impression is that Jasmine is a victim, may still be continuing to be a victim, and that's the best I could do with what I had.
Now, you talked about, you said, hey, I can't separate this out and this out. Well, let me ask you this. If you remove Ms. Tanasia from this incident, do we have anyone, in your opinion, getting shot?
Hypothetically, I'll say I don't know, because I don't know if Ms. Jasmine would have gone and said, I don't know. I have no clue.
Okay. Now, we all listen to the 911 call.
Yes, sir.
There's a part just before Mr. Cumbie shoots that you hear two voices. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. And these two voices, they give a direct warning to Mr. Cumbie. Is that correct?
The only two voices that I heard, I believed one to be Mr. Cumbie, and I believe the other to be Tyreek Rutledge. I can hear Mr. Cumbie say at 1:31 into the phone call with our 911 dispatcher, and I quote, "Listen, y'all go on now, cause I ain't." And then the second voice, which I believe to be Tyreek Rutledge, at 1:34, 3 seconds later says,
Now, if that's your kid, we said you've been on the job for 12 or 13 years.
yes, sir.
Based on everything that we heard, do you believe that Mr. Cumbie and these gentlemen were just going to talk it out?
No, sir. No, sir.
Now, let me ask you this, another hypothetical question. If someone chases law enforcement down and traps law enforcement while brandishing a gun, what would be the response of law enforcement in that situation? Hypothetical.
All things equal, if someone's chasing me with a gun, I'm gonna shoot back. But there's something that happens here that I don't think can be overlooked, Mr. Barr. Mr. Cumbie tells me he sees Tyreek disarm himself. Mr. Cumbie's the one that told me, I see Tyreek take the weapon out of his hand and toss it back into his car before he approached him. That's a major de-escalation in this. Tyreek de-escalates. Tyreek takes and de-escalates the situation by taking his gun and tossing it back in the car. And Mr. Cumby tells me he witnessed that happen, and yet he didn't de-escalate. There was a de-escalation that Mr. Cumby did not equate to on the de-escalation.
Would you agree that Mr. Cumby calling for law enforcement was a method of de-escalation?
Mitigation, yes, sir. De-escalation, hoping someone could get there to do that, but it did not de-escalate it. But the mere fact of Mr. Cumby seeing the de-escalation happen, seeing the individual toss the gun back in the car before approaching his vehicle, I don't think could be overlooked in that.
Let me just stop me when I say something that's incorrect.
Okay?
Mr. Cumby, on this night, left the party. Is that correct?
He did.
Mr. Cumby, on this night, when he left the party, was in a car that he owned lawfully. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Cumby had a firearm in his car that was legally owned. Is that correct?
Correct.
Mr. Cumby was chased by individuals in another car.
Yes.
Individuals in this car blocked Mr. Cumby in the roadway. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Individuals in this car got out of the car and gave a warning to Mr. Cumby to get the F out. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And individuals in this car had a firearm in the center console. Is that correct?
It wasn't in the center console, it was a plain view
It was
interview
plain.
at the center console.
So that is also correct.
Yes, sir.
It's correct that upon further search of this car, there was a rifle in the back compartment. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is it correct that Mr. Cumby called 911 that night?
That is correct.
Is it correct that at the scene you found, or Winsburg County Sheriff's Department has found what believed to be marijuana on the scene?
Yes, sir.
And is it also correct that Mr. Cumby and Ms. Tanasia and Ms. Jasmine all agree that Ms. Tanasia or Jasmine, one or the other, had alcohol and were consuming it that night?
Yes, sir.
And whoever story you want to believe, that Mr. Cumby and that drink, he didn't want it in his vehicle.
That's correct.
No further questions. Thank you, Investigator.
Yes, sir.
Move on.
Just a few follow-up questions, Investigator Kennedy. So would you say it's safe to say that Mr. Cumby left out some important details in the interview with you?
Yes, ma'am.
It's correct that he left out the fact that Jasmine had a firearm at the party?
He never told me in the interview that she was displaying a firearm at the party.
Would you agree that family members would be protective of a loved one?
Certainly.
So it's reasonable that someone would expect that there would be some sort of response to assaulting a loved one?
I think that's reasonable.
Would you agree that it's reasonable to assume that harming someone's loved one may be provocation?
Yes, ma'am.
And it is correct that the two deceased individuals, Mr. Tyreek Rutledge and Joey Jackson, did not have any weapons on their person.
Where they were found, there was no weapons found on them.
No further questions, Your Honor.
No further questions, Your Honor. Let me ask you a question. Sir, when the shooting occurred at the stop sign or past the stop sign, wherever it occurred in the highway, who was in the Ford Escort or the Ford vehicle?
The Ford Escape, the driver was one of the victims, Mr. Tyreek Rutledge.
Okay.
The second victim was sitting directly behind him in the back seat. His name is Mr. Joey Jackson. The front passenger seat was Mr. Shawan, and I think his last name was Brown. Sitting directly behind Mr. Shawan Brown is Miss Tanasia Tisdale, and sitting in the center in the back seat is Mr. Ontario Davis.
Tanisha was not there.
Yes, sir. Tanasia was sitting in the back seat on the passenger side.
Back right side. And the defendant's girlfriend was where?
She had been, when Mr. Cumby left Miss Tanasia on Pepper Hill, he pulled up about 2/10 of a mile back to the party and dropped Miss Jasmine Smith off at the party.
All right, that's all I have.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
May I be excused?
Yes, sir. Bart?
No further witnesses.
All right. Just 1 hour, we'll be back at 1 o'clock.